talked a lot about Sherwood Forest and Robin Hood. I'd like to ask you both about Daleks, because you've both worked with Daleks. Trevor on Revelation of the Daleks, but also Ian, you worked with Daleks on An Adventure in Space and Time. How was it working with such an iconic Doctor Who monster?
You go first this time.
Okay. Well, we're going back. I mean, part of my thing is that when I was 10, I remember the week Doctor Who first came out, because Kennedy was shot. There was all that going on. And Doctor Who, when I was 10, was my absolute favourite programme. I mean, I wouldn't, if we were going to Granny's on a Saturday, I would refuse to go because Granny didn't have telly, or whatever. It goes back that far. So I was very much brought up on this. And I remember the very first episode with the Daleks set on that planet Thrall or whatever. I can't remember anyway, but and it was so dramatic, and Daleks became so much part of one's childhood that there was that moment doing Revelation, walking into the studio and seeing 4 Daleks there, that you just get a bit of, oh my God, this is my childhood, and it's quite intimidating until you get a bit closer. And, in those days, the Daleks were a bit ropey. Literally, it was a sort of little wooden bench, and there were casters, so they'd move them around by, like Fred Flintstone style, by sort of moving their legs and the casters running around. And so there was, and also there was a moment in Revelation where I actually managed to explode a Dalek, and that felt like a sort of closure from childhood, weirdly. But I've seen them, and I know a couple. I mean, I know Barnaby Edwards and Nick, who are Dalek operators now, and the Daleks are a different proposition now. Now they're fully loaded mechanical pieces of tech, and very, very different. But no, it was a sort of it was a real sort of flashback to childhood thing going on.
I guess my experience was slightly different because I wasn't interacting with them as actual villains, but as reluctant extras. So I just shouted at a Dalek on Westminster Bridge for 10 minutes. But yeah, obviously it's a bucket list thing and ticked off having appeared in a scene with Daleks. And there were paparazzi there that day who took some photos, and I think they ended up on either the Sun or the Mail website. And I think just because I happened to be walking around in a long coat, I don't know why they would have thought I was the new Doctor Who, but I think it was captioned as this is the new Doctor Who very briefly. I thought, so there's my claim to fame.
For a moment you could have been.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Obviously in Adventure in Time and Space you were playing Richard Martin, who is a real person. Is that a different sort of thing to play a real person as opposed to a fictional person?
Well, I don't know. We go into the whole discussion then about whether Alan Dale is a fictional person, then, aren't we? The whole debate of the episode itself. I guess in a way. I mean, I suppose it's not like I was playing Harold Wilson or David Cameron or someone that people go, oh, well, that wasn't very much like him, was it? I think anyone who's going to turn around and say, oh, he didn't quite get Richard Martin there. But it was strange because I had met him, I worked with him. He actually directed me when I was at drama school. He directed our TV project. So it was a bit strange having met him and then 20 years later. And I think Mark I can't remember whether he had spoken to. I think he'd done, as he did with most of the people who were there at the time and who were still around. Mark had interviewed him, but it may be only over the phone, not in person. But then he rang up the one day, and I had a quick chat to him, and he remembered the shoot that we did in an orchard 20 years previously. So I suppose that the important thing as well was I wasn't trying to do an impersonation of him, and actually, if I had, because he's such a sort of flamboyant, big personality. It wouldn't have been right for the scene either. You kind of go, it would have unbalanced, and the scene in that moment is not about what kind of person Richard Martin was. So you don't want someone to be insulted, but I think at the same, and we got the look, I think, fairly accurate from photos at the time, and the cravat he still wears to this day. But I think he was okay with it. I don't think he was too offended.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think if I've played any other. I don't think I've played any other real life living characters. I think any other Alan Turing, William Shakespeare, they're all no longer with us. What about you, Trevor? Have you played someone in real life who's still with us, who you might have either bumped into or have heard from?
The only person I can think of, and he complained. He rang up the BBC. I was in a thing about it was called An Ungentlemanly Act, and it was all about the night the Falklands was invaded, and it was a very successful single one-off play, which won the BAFTA that year, directed by a guy called Stuart Urban, and there was a lot of it was filmed in the Falklands. I never got to go there. I was the guy playing the landlord of the Goose Green or whatever it was. There was one pub, I think, in the Falklands, and he was a bit like Basil Fawlty. He had this reputation of being unpleasant, and we filmed it in Hanwell. So I didn't get the exotic flight to the Falklands, although a lot of people who did go said it's not exotic at all. And he complained afterwards. He said, "Why did you get that big fat idiot to play me?" You know, and I was, the script had been sort of, you know, I was behaving very badly, as this man did all through the invasion, apparently. And I got all this, and Stuart told me that he got in touch and he showed me the letter of complaint. And he wasn't fat. That was part of it. And that was the main thing he objected to, that they cast a fat bloke to play him, and he wasn't.
Now, Trevor, you've in a small group of people that have worked in both classic Doctor Who and new series. What are the differences between the two?
Well, one of them, obviously, is what I talked about before, was the fact that, you know, coming into the new Who, the technical advances that have been made in the meantime, and the fact that we were all on location. I mean, a lot of it still is. You know, a lot of it is just still filmed in Cardiff in the studios, but we were on location for all of it. I don't think there were any scenes in the studio. But it wasn't just that. It's just that, you know, technical things have moved on. There always used to be slightly the joke, and there was a running gag, that there was a sort of corridor in old Who, that there was always a chase sequence, and they'd always go down this corridor, and they'd get to the end of it and then have to turn around and do this. And it was the same corridor in every single episode, on every single planet, wherever it was, slightly redressed, you know, according to whether it was sort of medieval or, you know, futuristic or what. And I remember Nicola Bryant she had this line, and apparently it was in quite a lot of episodes, where she'd stop at the end and she'd go, "All these corridors look the same," and then disappear and run off. And so there was a bit of a sort of, and everyone who worked on the old Doctor Who sort of took that into account, that there was a sort of British sort of make do, belt and braces approach to sort of just getting it together. And we know we didn't have the sort of full technical know-how. I remember having to do something on a computer screen, and literally they said, "Well, you obviously haven't got it. We'll put that in post-production, and you have to sort of do this and look like you're looking at something." And it wasn't. It wasn't even green screen. I can't remember what it was. You know, so and that sort of adds to it. In a way, it made quite a lot of the old stuff slightly more light-hearted, even though it could be incredibly dark, and even darker than some of the new stuff, you know, but a lot of it, there was a light-hearted feel to it, which there still is with the new Who, but I think the advance in technology has made the whole thing a bit more serious in a way.
Yeah. Now, you've both also done Doctor Who Big Finish stories. How is it working in audio as opposed to on camera.
You don't have to learn the lines.
Yeah.
That's the main difference.
And you get a very nice lunch.
Everybody always talks about the lunches.
Yeah. Did you do yours at in Labatt Grove, Ian? Yeah. And Toby's
mainly, I've done. I think I did one in Tunbridge Wells because that's where Tom Baker.
Yes, I did one there with him as well. Yeah. But no, if you do it, what do they call this? What are those studios called?
Moat Studios.
Moat Studio, that's right. And Toby, the engineer there, does the most amazing lunches. That's what everyone sort of talks about. No, I actually worked out not long ago that I worked not on Doctor Who, but necessarily because some of it was Big Finish and some of it on other things. I've worked with every living Doctor.
Wow.
So that's not bad, is it? The only one I didn't really work with him was Christopher Eccleston. We were both in the same thing, but we never sort of came across each other. So I've not actually met him, so that sort of doesn't count. But we were in the same, we were in. I did a thing called Our Friends in the North, which is one of the big things that But yeah, so but no, it's great fun to do the Doctor Who on radio. It's lovely. We're doing Star Cops as well. We're now doing that for Big Finish, and that's been a great, suddenly David Calder and I, who are way past retirement age for spacemen, supposedly running around corridors on Mars doing things, and that's fun too.
Are you continuing to record that, but under your duvet at home, or are there none kind of scheduled in the diary for now?
No, there's nothing there. There's nothing coming up. No, we did one. There's one. I think there's one about to come out, or it may have just come out, which is the third one we've done. I think, which is a third set of 4 or 5. We do 4 or 5 in each episode. But no, I haven't done one for a while. I haven't sort of worked since lockdown. I mean, I haven't even done a voiceover yet. And I'm not I haven't got a lot of friends of mine who do voiceovers have got their own home studio now. Have you got one, Ian? Have you got a home studio?
We haven't. We're thinking of investing one because actually Mark has just been asked to do a Big Finish. So I think he's going to get the mic and the setup and everything. And my agents mentioned it, and my attitude was kind of, oh God, so many people must have them by now. Is there any space left in the market? But if we've got it anyway for that, I suppose and who knows how long we'll go on to. I did a Zoom rehearsed reading this week, so I've done some work. I've got my first Zoom audition for Panto next week as well.
Oh wow!
So that'll be interesting. I'm just debating, although I'm thinking, oh God, as it's at home and obviously I'm not having to travel on the tube to get there, is the expectation that I'm going to do it in full makeup or something? Isn't it? I bet some buggers will do that. They'll go full out.
I'm sure. Widow Twanky. That's all it's going to be.
Yeah. I was going to say, as actors, how is it coping with sort of doing things like auditions and readings at a distance? Because obviously that's a very different experience.
I suppose audition-wise, because so many people have started using self-tapes in the last few years, that actually doesn't feel quite so unusual. So I suppose maybe for theatre, that's a bit unusual. Though I've done a few theatre self-tapes. Obviously, if
I have too. Yeah.
Meet them under ordinary circumstances. So that, I suppose, the actual audition part of it doesn't feel so unusual because so much of TV is cast, or at least initial meetings are done that way now anyway. The actual performance side of it is a bit different. I mean, doing a play was interesting. We were trying to kind of get the same background so that it looked like you were both in the same scene, and then there's all the technical things of props being handed to someone one side of the screen and then being taken and things like that. So we had a bit of fun like that, but it was set in the 40s, so you're then scrambling around the house. I'm supposed to trying to cobble together a surgeon's costume from the 1940s. How am I going to do that? Although at least you only have to do it from the waist up.
How big was the cast? I mean, how many people?
4.
How many? 4. All right, so it's not not too bad.
So I think that's that, and most of them were two-handers or there was one three-hander scene. There wasn't even one scene where all four of us were in. I think once you start getting to very big casts, it would be very difficult. But I think the tricky thing is, I mean, that was German Street Theatre, and they put it up online and then asked for kind of donations as for people to sort of help out. I think the problem is because if this keeps on going for a long time, theatre and theatre makers are going to have to find a way of being able to monetize it. And I think because in the initial rush, so much stuff was put online for free, there might be a little bit of resistance. So people might go, well, hang on a minute, I've been watching One Man, Two Governors and all these other NT lives. Now I'm being asked to pay for them. So
I'm waiting for Undermilt Wood to be done on Zoom. I think that would be quite
yes,
a load of boxes.
Yeah, I was just listening to Broadcasting House this morning, and they're asking that are there any plays in particular that would suit being done via Zoom. Can't think of any. But certainly would be better. Have
you worked at all since lockdown? I mean,
well, I've
apart from things like
the geometry thing, yeah. I've been writing,
right.
So I've been doing that, but not. I mean, because obviously opportunities. I mean, I think a few people are going into actual recording studios, but obviously there's been no actual theatre, no TV. I was filming something. I finished my time on it just before lockdown came in. So
yeah.
Before it stopped.
I think they have started doing, haven't they? Aren't they now starting to get together some TV and film stuff? But it's all done. There was one film I read about where the whole cast and crew were in sort of quarantine, all living in the same place.
Well, this is the question, isn't it, about how they're actually going to do it? Are they going to try and self-isolate from that time? But then what happens if one of those people come down with symptoms? I mean, I imagine insurance solutions are massive.
Sorry, go on.
I did see a bit of a Sheridan Smith lockdown drama, which was kind of done in her home and then via Zoom. And then it was interesting, Phil Jackson and his wife Sally both played her parents. So I said, obviously, if there are any households with two actors in, maybe this is...
That's the thing. I know in all those, I saw those, and in all of them, basically... I mean, Sheridan Smith's partner had to end up doing most of the filming because there isn't a crew. There's you've got Zoom and you've got all the heads of department all checking everything out. But actually, she and her partner were actually having to do all the technical stuff and all the bring in all the lights and angle things and do this, that, and the other. So that's what it's going to be now. We just all make our own movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Because obviously, when you're filming in normal circumstances, those jobs are done by other people. Is that something you're aware of as an actor? What's going on for sort of lights and cameras and?
Well, how do you mean? Do you mean when you're on a set? The fact that there are so many other people around you. Well, no, I think in the end you sort of shut it out. I mean, you have to sort of be, in the moment, for your thing, and you have to be able to. It's awfully easy to be distracted by other things that are going on, because even in the most sort of intimate situation, there's probably about 40 people in the room.
And sometimes are you aware of the work they do ordinarily? Then yes, of course, because you're aware of obviously how much time it takes for the lighting to get set so that it looks absolutely spot on. And that's the thing that kind of takes the time, isn't it, Trevor? Which kind of differentiates sort of high-end drama and stuff that's made like Doctor Who is now, and maybe your daytime soaps and things like that, where people are still working just as hard, but there just simply isn't the time to spend loads of time minutely lighting a set, and the actors, so they look beautiful. It's literally just like, turn a big light on, can we see you? Okay, start filming.
Yes, quite. Yeah.
So you're aware of all that and the difficulties of how it's going to be with things like hair and makeup, and how you do some of those jobs, and how the sound guy puts a radio mic on you while social distancing is, I don't know, impossible.
You've mentioned hair and makeup. Bringing back to Robot of Sherwood, How was the sort of the costumes? Were they comfortable? Were they practical?
Well, I had my monk outfit, and I just remember wanting to go to the loo at one point and thinking, God, that's actually going to be quite a major performance anyway. But they were. It was the nice thing about being a monk was they didn't have to do much. I didn't have to have the full tonsure, All they did was they got a little bit of hair that joined up these two bits. That was all it was. But no, it was. I mean, actually, it's quite. In some ways, it's quite liberating just to be in a sort of monk's habit and not to have all the accoutrements of. I can't remember what we had on our feet. Was it sort of sandally things? I guess it was.
I had the kind of the sort of leather jerkin and leather breeches and all that.
Yeah.
I'm not being rude. I'm trying to see if I've still got it on my phone. I don't think I do. Just talking about hair and makeup, the different wigs that we went through and the different looks that I had that we tried out. Because one of them was just my own hair kind of brushed into a sort of medieval bowl, which looked awful. I had a blonde kind of sort of Plantagenet thing that sort of came down to there and slightly curled. That looked awful as well. What else did I have? And then the one I ended up with, I think because Joe had been casting because he was blonde, so they thought they could give me a dark wig. So the curly dark wig that I had was Benedict Cumberbatch's stunt doubles wig from Sherlock, because Claire, who's the head of hair and makeup, was also hair and makeup on Sherlock. So I ended up with Benedict's wig.
That's one of the fascinating things about being an actor is when you get a costume that's been worn by someone else and it's still got the name in the. I did an episode of Heartbeat, and I wore a jacket that had Marlon Brando written in the collar, and an overcoat that had Orson Welles.
Wow!
And they were both from
Angels.
Angels, yeah. Yeah, and they literally, because I'm always big and quite difficult to find clothes that fit. And they went into the sort of back room and they said, when you finish wearing this stuff, it's just going straight back into the sort of, they've got a museum of sorts there of things that famous people have worn. So I had Marlon Brando and Orson Welles in the same costume for an episode of Heartbeat.
And presumably very careful over the lunch break to make sure you didn't.
Oh yes. I literally it was kid gloves.
It's been wonderful to talk to both of you. Thank you very much, Trevor and Ian.
Pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks very much.